You're watching our special broadcast on the eve of the U.S. presidential elections. The winner of the race to the White House will have significant geopolitical ramifications as the person gets to dictate U.S. foreign policy. Trump, as we had seen during the first presidency, is a disruptor-in-chief who does not shy away from rocking the boat. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, would not significantly deviate from the Biden administration's strategy. Let me go across to Lisa Curtis, Director, Indo-Pacific Security Program at the Center for New American Security. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today, Lisa Curtis. Let me begin by asking you, is foreign policy a major issue on the ballot in America?
Well, I think it is an issue, but I think domestic issues are even more important right now. Immigration, crime, the economy, inflation. These are really the issues that are driving the campaigns of both candidates. Foreign policy came more into play when we saw the debates, both the debate between former President Trump and Vice President Harris, as well as the vice presidential candidates. So at that time, I think we saw more of a focus on foreign policy. But lately, I think the issues have really been domestic. They've been focused on the issues I just discussed. They've also been focused on how each side is campaigning. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of attacks, on each candidate, as well as some rhetoric, some unseemly rhetoric that's been happening here. So that's unfortunate. It would be better if both sides stuck to the issues at hand, but we have seen some of that happening in the last few weeks. But I do expect that, most people will be placing their votes based largely on their concerns about what's happening inside the United States.
Lisa Curtis, do you believe that the harsh stand that Donald Trump has taken on immigration has also on issues such as abortion, that has led women in America across communities to unify, also the Asian Americans, the African Americans to unite maybe in favor of Kamala Harris?
Well, I don't think it's really that simple. I think what we've seen is a lot of differences in how these communities are reacting, how they're responding. For instance, we saw that Black male Americans weren't necessarily supporting Kamala Harris. This is why former President Obama came out and lectured them, trying to get them to, change their support to Kamala Harris. This was unexpected. Also, the Latina vote, that's been very unpredictable in terms of where that's going. And we have seen Trump be able to get some of those communities that you might normally see voting Democratic, supporting him for various reasons. Maybe it's about the economy. Maybe it's about immigration. I think people don't understand that legal immigrants to the United States often become very angry about illegal immigration. So that has actually been in Trump's favor, that he has come down so hard on illegal immigration. That's even gotten him support from some minority communities in the United States. So what I'm trying to say is there has been a complete breakdown of sort of the conventional wisdom with this election. Individuals are voting who they feel will be the best candidate for their own sort of personal interest. And that varies, as we can see, by our very divided electorate.
Right. Do you feel that today the institutions in the United States, especially after the violence that we have seen at Capitol Hill in 2020, do you think today the institutions in the US are far stronger? They are ready to deal with any kind of challenge, legal challenge that may be thrown up by the Donald Trump camp after the election?
I do think that our institutions at every level, whether it be local, state, or national, are prepared for potential challenges to the election results. And I do think that we will have challenges. It stands to reason. We have a divided electorate. We have a very close election. What that means is, both sides are going to have difficulty accepting defeat. So I think we will see a lot of challenges, and this also means we probably won't know the results for many weeks, maybe even months. Because the challenges will likely go to the courts, and the courts will have to make these decisions. So I think this is what we're faced with. We're likely to see results taking a while, quite possibly, and we're also likely to see a lot of challenges, people not accepting the results. And of course, there's more concern about if Harris were to win, there's more concern about the Trump camp accepting the results because of what we saw on January 6, 2020. But I think on both sides, I think there's concern that either side might have difficulty accepting the result because it is so close.
Right. Kamala Harris, considering the fact that she is an Indian American and Asian American, how do you think she has drawn voters in this election? How do you think she has matured from a vice president to a presidential candidate in just a span of a few months?
Well, I think she's had a lot of on-the-job experience serving as vice president over the last 3.5 years. She has done a lot of traveling. She's gotten a lot of foreign policy, as as well as national security experience. She has already had experience campaigning. So I think actually the last few months, she wasn't completely out of her depth or her realm. She's competed in a lot of elections in the past and has had experience. So I think, she has campaigned hard. She has showed up where she needs to show up. She has done a lot of media. She's been everywhere, all kinds of different media. But so has Trump. This has been one of the most active campaigns, that I can certainly remember by both candidates. They've literally held rallies almost every day, and they're everywhere, including today. I think Trump is going to be in 3 states today. He's going to be in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. And I think the Vice President Harris is going to spend her time in Pennsylvania because, of course, that is what this election could come down to. That's sort of seen as the most important battleground state right now. So I think that, she's had plenty of experience, and she, has given this fight her all, her best. And now we'll have to see where the chips fall.
Right. I'd like to ask you about Donald Trump. It is said that the only reason why Donald Trump wants to fight this election and wants to be re-elected is because he wants to stay out of jail. What will be the consequences, the legal consequences emanating from all the criminal trials against Donald Trump if he doesn't win the election?
Well, of course, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't really comment on what these various charges are going to amount to. They haven't amounted to much so far. And I think that, to answer your first question, no, he's not running to stay out of jail. He's running because he wants to be president of the United States. He feels that, he did a good job the first time around, and that, he wants to finish the job that he started in his first term. So I think he's determined to to try to win, and it has really nothing to do with any of these charges or cases against him. And what happens if he doesn't win? What happens with those cases? I suppose they continue to play out. But we might see that some of the people that have brought these cases aren't as vigorous about the cases as maybe they have been over the last year.
Lisa, what's at stake in the Indo-Pacific? We've seen a lot of strides being made by India, US, Japan, and Australia in the last 4 years of the Biden administration. In fact, Indo-Pacific has been a work in progress for the last 10 years. Give us a sense of how this election outcome could impact the cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, and is there anything that concerns you?
Well, I did say that most of the current focus of the election campaigns is on domestic issues. But I assure you, whoever takes the seat in January 20th, 2025, one of the first foreign policy issues they're going to have to deal with is the Indo-Pacific, the rise of China. This is simply, the number one challenge for U.S. foreign policy and national security right now, and it will quickly be on the radar screen of whoever is elected. But I think what you can see is a consistency in the evolution of U.S. policy toward China over the last, I would say, 5-6 years. Toward the end of the Trump administration, it became very clear that the historical policy of trying to accommodate China, trying to include China in international institutions, was not having the desired effect of making China a responsible stakeholder in the international system, that the opposite was happening, that China was increasingly aggressive and, stealing technology from the U.S., really becoming a challenge on all fronts and a competitor. Let's face it, the United States is in a fierce competition with China. So the Trump administration started to address these challenges. The Biden administration continued to address those challenges with, export controls, with, restrictions on U.S. outbound investment into China. This has happened more recently. And I fully expect that if Trump were elected, his China policies would continue the same and probably institute even more measures in order for the U.S. to be able to address competition with China, to be able to maintain that rules-based order in the region that I think India also supports and has been working with the United States through groupings like the Quad and other initiatives. So I fully expect that whoever is elected, this will be at the top of their foreign policy agenda as soon as they take power in January.
All right, Lisa Curtis, thank you very much for joining us. Clearly, China will be big on the next U.S. president's mind, and it will be a priority area considering we've seen tensions between U.S. and China for the last 8 years now. India also has had its set of tensions with China, and we've recently resolved border tensions in the eastern Ladakh region. So let's see what happens in the next few weeks. The U.S. elections will also have a significant impact on the global economy, trade, financial markets, and emerging economies like India. Lata Venkatesh is here to explain.
Well, let's start with how